Hello and welcome back to the channel for some more Prime Cutz, where we explore Amazon Prime's video vault for the more esoteric films that are in there, shall we say. And this time around we have Santa's Sleigh, a 2005 horror comedy starring Bill Goldberg as a murderous demon Santa. It all kicks off with this family played by various notable actors who are clearly a very unpleasant bunch sitting down to their Christmas meal when Santa arrives, and here's Goldberg as Santa, but it turns out he's horribly violent and he kills everybody in various festive themed manners, like throwing the star from the top of the tree, etc. It's a little disappointing that this opening sequence, which is quite amusing, doesn't really set the tone for the film, because it's not as schlocky as you might have hoped. But here we meet our main character Nicholas working in a delicatessen in a small town. Cut to seeing Santa arriving into the small town, terrorizing the old lady who was in there previously as he enters. And here is Emily DeRaven as Mary, who's here to pick Nick up from his job. This film came out in 2005, so it's about a year after Lost had started. So she's probably the biggest star in this film at this point, and quite possibly is the reason it managed to get funded if she was on board. Anyway, she takes Nick home, drops him off, and we meet his crazy grandfather. At no point do we find out why he lives with his grandfather, but his grandfather is the classic mad inventor type who is paranoid about Christmas Day, and as the film goes on we'll find out why. Meanwhile, evil Santa is going about town. It does not go well for that mugger, and we start to get a bit of exposition about what exactly is going on and why Santa apparently is evil this year. The classic hold by of the book of myths and legends from the old lands, and we do get some nice little kind of animated sequences a little bit later on as we read on that, but here's Mary again, offering Grandad some roadkill that she has prepared, somewhat bizarrely, but she's trying to get Nick to sort of buy into Christmas, because there's some reasons why he doesn't really go for the holiday season. But here we have the local community heading to church and the local vicar giving his sermon, and we will shortly see him going to the local strip club. But just after he arrives, as does Santa. Now, I would say this is probably the sequence you've most likely seen somewhere, or somebody mention if you've ever seen anything about this film, as Santa rampages his way around this strip club. Now again, much like the opening sequence, you kind of think that the film is really going to kind of lean into these really schlocky kind of sequences, but this, to tell the truth, is kind of the last one that's really like this, which is a bit of a shame, because after this point the film loses a bit of its energy. It's still, I would say, quite diverting and entertaining enough, but it never really picks up energy again. Nicholas and Mary having a bit of an argument so they can reconcile later. Meanwhile, the crazy uncle is working on a gadget, and cut to this charming little stop motion animated sequence which is explaining the backstory of what has happened. And it turns out that Santa really actually is a demon, but was tricked thousands of years in the past by an archangel and forced to deliver joy every Christmas Day instead of wreaking vengeance across the land. Here we arrive at Christmas Day. Bang, there goes the nativity. Cut away to some horrible, horrible children, and Santa's left some special surprises for them. Marvellous. The poor delicatessen owner who is here on Christmas Day cleaning his machine runs afoul of evil Santa, and that's the end of him, unfortunately. Nick arrives to the shop to find the dead body pinned up against the wall and calls to the police. And then, of course, as is typical at the police station, he's trying to explain all about that there's an evil Santa going around and they have until the end of Christmas Day to survive. Obviously, the police chief does not believe him, because why would you? All the police eating donuts, which is a nice little touch. And then all the police are done for. Not quite clear why, but then Santa starts chasing Nick and Mary out of the police cruiser. They eventually manage to fight him off. A nice touch here is it's Mary who's the calm and collected one, and it's Nick who is the panicky one. But they race to find his grandpa because they reckon he knows what's going on. They finally believe what he's been saying all of this time. These poor carolers are attacked, and this is where Santa starts to realise that he's found Nicholas's grandpa specifically. It will turn out that these two know each other. Nice stop motion or kind of puppetry on the evil reindeer, although the compositing of the effect isn't quite there. We then have an extended chase sequence, which I won't spoil for you. It's got some imaginative touches in, and then these two break into the school to find somewhere to kind of hide out. But Santa tracks them down, and we get some classic horror movies stalking around the darkened set before we run out into the school's ice rink. You know it's Canada when the school has its own ice rink. A close brush with the Zamboni. Zamboni is just a fun word to say, really, isn't it? And Nicholas's granddad appears, and it turns out he was the archangel that originally tricked Santa all of those years ago. So he has another confrontation with Santa and tries to play the same trick as he did before, but it doesn't really work. And after talking about hunting him down, Santa dispatches Nicholas's grandpa into the seeming hellhole here. And with the use of a nutcracker that we saw earlier, Nicholas and Mary escape, and they run into the local ski shoot hunting club who have their annual event on Christmas Day. And her father and I think her brother are sort of there, and they manage to get them all to help out and shoot down the approaching Santa as he flies on down. And as everybody fires away, eventually what does for Santa is a missile launcher, which apparently Mary's dad got for Christmas, which is pretty much the final joke, I guess, that somebody would get a weapon like that for Christmas. And we close on Nicholas and Mary having a proper kiss for the first time. and that is Santa's Sleigh. As I say, I think it's an amusing little idea. They've got some nice lore in there about what is going on, but it just doesn't kind of really lean into the horror elements enough. I think if they'd really amped up the slasher horror side of it, it could have worked much better. It seemed to go for something that wasn't quite as extreme as it could have been, so it ends up sitting in a strange middle ground where it's not really a family, it's not a family film at all, but it's not really enough to be a full out kind of horror that is got some laughs in it. It's diverting enough, and it is quite short. I think it's less than 80 minutes overall. So yeah, check this one out if you want something a bit different this Christmas, but it could have been so much more. Please do like and subscribe if you like these journeys through the oddities contained within Amazon Prime's vaults, and I'll be back again soon with another one.